Topic that all parents can connect with, teaching your kids really what matters.
Yeah, it can be argued that we live in a disposable world, right? That it makes it possible, even easy for you to just toss it out. But when does disposable become destructive?
Clean so completely, you'll never go back to your old room again.
Take out the papers and the trash.
We live in a society where we don't even sweep anymore. We swift. Just spray, wipe, and toss. Dish rags have been replaced with wipes, dish towels with that thin paper substitute, and handkerchiefs? What are those anyway?
Don't go back.
Convenient, sure, but most people know and agree that waste can be harmful. To the environment, yes, but in this day and age of disposable convenience, is the mentality of toss it away also harming our relationships? Social networking sites stand to prove you can get rid of a friend with the click of a mouse. And with divorce rates at an all-time high, is signing away commitment too easy and too accepted? Studio 5 relationship coach Matt Townsend is here with ways to teach our kids that despite this disposable world, relationships are not something you can throw away.
Even the days you want to. You can't toss them, can you? Have you ever tried? They're like boomerangs. They just keep coming back, and they keep coming back. But we have this mentality that it's, you know, that they're not permanent. Things can go, things can come, things can go. I grew up in a family with divorced parents. My wife and I got in a fight at Wendy's over an 89-cent drink in our first year of marriage, which none of you would do, but we did it. And finally I said, look, if I'm so bad, just divorce me. And her head spun all the way around, and she said, don't say that word again. And right then I knew. Relationships are permanent. She says, there's no way out of this. There's only through.
Can I quote you, though? Because I thought this was pretty powerful from your article today. You said the cancer of disposability is one of the most dangerous problems impacting relationships of the 21st century. So while you established early on that word can't enter this relationship, a lot of people let it in the door.
So we got to be teaching it. We got to teach it to our kids who are so tech savvy that everything's just immediate and now and disposable. So we're going to give you 4 reasons or 4 lessons even to teach your kids, okay? We'll go through each one. And you think in your own life and marriage, are you doing this? Do you see, you know, disposability in your relationships, even your friendships, okay? Here's the first rule, okay? Only permanent thinking grows deep enough relationships for lasting relationships, okay? Only permanent thinking can grow deep roots. If you think something can be done away with immediately, you're not going to be in this for the long haul. If you keep pulling up a plant to check its roots every 5 seconds, and if it's not growing properly, we're going to toss it, it's not going to feel safe enough to grow.
So what are some things that people might fall into for as long as that rule? Any example we can take?
Like threats, like when we're dating, like you know, if I have 7 things I've got to have if I'm going to stay with you, and so they set up this ultimatum, like, okay, am I meeting all 7? Are all the criteria there, or are you going to bail on me any chance you can? So if I don't get a sense from a partner that you're permanent, that you're in for the long haul, then I may not have fertile, rich enough soil to grow deep, deep roots, which we're all going to need in our relationships if we want to stand that test of time, right? So think about it. If you're not looking at relationships long term, that's why we don't get rid of grandma. We don't get rid of our kids. We try, you know, but they don't go away. They just don't go away. So you got to think long term, and that little short term thinking, it sets us up. So if you get in a history of short term relationship, over time, you're going to have a harder time to dig deeper roots.
And the key is you keep saying thinking, so it's not just what you're saying or how you're acting, it's what you're thinking.
It's going to be paradigms. It's the paradigm of permanency that matters. Okay? That's why we make commitments, that's why we make covenants, that's why they make marriage a big deal, because it makes it seem more permanent. And permanency helps you get through the times where you might just fly away if you could.
And really, if you're into that sort of that routine of these short relationships, that sets you up a pattern that might make it harder down the road.
And parents, you can teach that. Teach that, you know what, we don't hurt Jimmy because Jimmy's going to be around a long time. Jimmy is a human being, and when we hurt human beings, we're going to be hurting, and they'll remember him forever and ever and ever. Which leads us to our next point. You ready for this one? Relationships never die. Ever die. They just die in our memory. The only way a relationship can actually go away, you might not be talking to him anymore, but if you saw him at the mall, you'd go back to exactly where you were. You know exactly where you stand with that person. So the idea that we can just dispose of a relationship is a myth. You're going to end up seeing that person again somewhere, and that you all have experienced this. The minute you walk into that person, you are right back to where you were. You either feel insecure again, inadequate again. So you can't have a disposable relationship or a concept of disposability if they never go away. So it's better to get in your head, because they never go away, then I have to change the memories of it. I have to turn my memories healthier about it, and I have to make sure when we're going to end a marriage or a relationship, we end it in the healthiest way possible, which most people don't do. Most people have to hate each other to divorce each other. You need the anger and the energy of really frustrated with each other to move on.
Well, and that gets at, in any relationship, resolving. I mean, resolving arguments, closure. Yeah,
Closure's
that becomes so important in that setting.
And the problem is, most of us, if we're fighting or flighting, or if I think a relationship is disposable, why would I need to close it? Let's just terminate it. But remember, they don't ever go away.
And even if it's just something like reconnecting on Facebook, that relationship will still ever be there. Right. Whether you see them or not, even if it's just reconnecting somewhere in the digital world, you have to have the relationship.
Just because you defriend somebody.
They can track you down again.
You can defriend them all you want, but there's always a history and a memory, and it's the problem. It's the memories we've got to live with, right? And the memories are what we carry about ourselves. Okay? So 2 important ones. Another lesson you've got to teach is that our relationships are the canary in the mine, they're supposed to say. I think the relationships are the canary in the mine.
This is the analogy. The canary is like reflective of if there are poisonous gases in the mine.
So the miners carry some poor bird down, and when the bird dies, that's a sign that there's a trouble. Okay, relationships, I believe, are one of the early warning detectors in our life that we need to change. We need to grow as a human being. We get feedback from people constantly, but if we're not in relationships with people that have been permanent with us, we're not going to get a constant or a more long-term flow. If we always have new people coming in being yes people, and we keep dishing them out, we're not going to have a solid canary in the mine that's going to keep teaching us where we need to change, where we need to grow. So the idea that you can just toss these things, try it all you want. But the minute you're too disposing of your relationships, you're losing some major insight.
You've got to carry the canary with you for your whole life. That's going to be your...
And sometimes relationships don't work, so when they don't work, you know, we effectively, healthfully let them go with closure, with our character, but we realize too that that's a sign that I got to be maybe more careful. I've got to learn something from this relationship. I've got to change something.
I was going to say, there's a lot of lessons to learn from this bird, because essentially that can tell you where you're at in your life. I mean, looking at those relationships, that canary can really give you a gauge of where you're at.
And we don't want anyone to get like depressed because all of a sudden, oh my heck, the canaries keep dying. It doesn't just mean that's your fault. Sometimes we just have bad luck. And some people are in really good relationships where the canary seems to be alive, but it's really been dead for 4 years. Its eyes are just popped open, and it's got a dowel up its backside. So, is that too graphic? Because sometimes I like to be graphic. But the reality is, canaries, they're important. Relationships are important. They're the canary in the mine.
What's point number 4?
Last one is that our relationships are the school for character, okay? So once we're getting detection that our relationships are struggling, you want long-term relationships. You want the goal of creating a relationship that's enduring, that lasts 50, 60, 70 years, because that's where you're tested. Who tests you more than the people you love the most? Who tests you more than the kid that you brought to this earth, that you gave life, and now they won't even talk to you? That's the biggest test in the world, isn't it? How do you handle them? Now, here's one of my favorite rules. How you handle the most difficult child you've got is the lesson for your level of character to everyone else around you. How you handle the hardest child tells every other child in the family how low you will go. Okay? So you cannot relate to somebody without demonstrating character. And remember, I also believe you're not ever relating to just somebody that's just this human. I have a belief that we are spiritual beings having human experiences. We're not human beings having spiritual experiences. So you can't mess over a human without messing over a soul, without messing over something that's much bigger than this world. Okay, that's very philosophical. But why that's important is you've got to grow it out of character. And you cannot not communicate. Every time I treat you wrong about your watch,
It's white today.
It looks great.
Okay.
But every time I do that, I disrespect you, and I'm sorry.
Apologies.
See how that is? So you got to do it.
Relationships are formed. Okay, very, very good advice, and I would encourage really your article. I poured over it. It was great. Fabulous. And you have a date night.
I have the big date
coming up, a big one.
Friday,
You're
April 29th.
Money?
Money. So some couples, apparently it's the #1 issue couples fight about. How do you talk to your partner about finances? This Friday, April 29th, 7 to 9. If you've got friends or neighbors or a spouse that can't talk to you about money, get to this. Tons of fun. It's at Noah's. Just go to datenightswithmatt.com and sign up for that bad boy.
They
Tons
fill
of fun.
up fast, so
yeah,
they
do.
register.
And
Thanks,
if finances are an issue, just don't tell your spouse that you
That's
pay
right.
any
Just
money.
pay for it.
Just,
Nobody will know.
It's a hush-hush under the carpet there.
That's right.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, guys.
All right, when we